So, today's Friday. I started a new workout program on Monday, and I really like it. It's great. My body is so sore. I am in so much pain with with this. So I didn't go into the gym today. I was supposed to go and I didn't. I stayed home. I didn't work at all. I promoted a little bit here and there. I kind of did some tweeting and stuff like that, but didn't really do much. Kind of took a day to do nothing. Um, So sat home. It's been raining a ton here in Austin. So I started watching TV, tried to find a new episode, and I came across Marriage Boot Camp. So I was like, oh, this might be interesting. So I started watching it. The first episode, I realized I was a terrible wife. I was married for a long time, and I was a bad wife for all those years. I was selfish. I was self-centered. I was brutal. I was mean. I never saw his side. Never even bothered to think about him in the ways I probably should have. And I was horrible. And I didn't know how horrible I was until I got out of that marriage and into something that was worse than what I was, and got myself a massive wake-up call. And I'm not going to say I was in a relationship with someone, with Gabe. I'm going to say that was more of like sitting with karma for a few years there. I don't know, what, 4 years, I guess. And I felt like I deserved a lot of what happened to me because of how brutal I was in my marriage to my ex-husband. So I'm going into the studio next week to record my next podcast, and that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about how toxic women, what they look like, signs to look out for them, how someone becomes toxic. Like, how did I become toxic? I've met people like recently, and they're like, I can't imagine that you were horrible like that. Like, doesn't sound like you, doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it really was. I was a terrible wife, and it was something I regret even to this day. I cannot believe how horrible I was. And I watched that show, and I was like, wow, that was me. And if had I gone on a show like that, I don't know what would have worked. I don't know what would have worked other than losing my family, losing my marriage, getting into an abusive, toxic relationship with the male version of me, and then leaving me the way he did, and having to fix myself by myself. So I had to get, I guess, kind of destroyed in order to figure out what I was doing and how horrible I was. Watching that today was more of a wake-up call, I guess, and more of a, I feel like, a responsibility to talk about toxic women and what they look like and how they act, and how men can prevent themselves from being in a relationship like that. And then, like, what happens when you find out you're in a relationship like that with someone that's toxic? What can you do? Like, what are your options? And it's a tough thing because men who are in toxic relationships normally don't know they're in a relationship like that. There's a stigma attached to it. How do you get out of it? What does that look like for a man? Like, how does he stand up for himself? And it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to people, because a man is tough and strong and this and that. And women, though, some of them know how to do it, just like toxic men. Toxic women are the same way. So it's sometimes difficult for men to get out of a relationship like that. So I'll be recording that podcast next week. Be sure to tune in for when that comes out, when that's released, because I'd love to hear thoughts, everyone's thoughts on all my podcasts, on all the stuff that I talk about, like agree, disagree, what it did for you, whatever. I'd love to hear like opinions and thoughts of all that stuff. But yeah, that was like, I sat there and I was like, I was an awful wife. An awful wife. So be sure to tune in to that new podcast next week.